Our defending race winner with us now, and that's Kurt Busch. He's won here a couple times in a Sprint Cup Series. He drives the number 41. Monster Energy Haas Automation Chevrolet for Stewart Haas Racing. And Kurt, this is a track that's been good to you. You've been good to this track, and just talk about that. The likeness of this racetrack, and maybe why you think your driving style is a good fit here.
Yeah, the short track part of our schedule is a lot of fun, and you have Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond, all uniquely different, but they all share the same quality, and that's a short track. And so there's things that you have to do on a short track to work on conserving the tires, also making sure that you're good on the short run, making sure you're good on the long run, because restarts have become so much more important over the last couple years, and you don't know if you're going to have a long run to finish the race or if you're going to have a short run. So you just got to be ready for everything, and it seems like the short tracks, the preferred lane on restarts is becoming more and more important. And so you hope that you're on the inside lane when it comes down to one of the final few restarts, and that way you're able to gain positions instead of having to be on the defense. But Richmond's a fun track. They used to call it the action track. That was when the groove would widen out and get to 2-3 lanes wide. And we always hope to get back to that. And it's a matter of finding the right tire and the right downforce combination to allow the cars to race, competitively side by side in safe situations. And that's what we want to do, is put on a good show. And so we're looking to back up what we did here last spring with the Monster Energy Haas Automation Chevrolet.
Good deal. We'll take some questions. Let's start back in the back. We got 3 back there. We'll knock those out and then come up front here. Go ahead there, back in the back.
Kurt, Mark Davis, NBC 12 here in Richmond. Tony obviously returning this week as a headline. Just from as a teammate and a car owner, how exciting is it for you guys to have him back there, and how good is it for NASCAR too to have him back behind the wheel?
Well, it's great to have our team owner and our lead driver back in the car. To have an injury outside of racing, it's always tough to go through, especially with Stewart in a retirement type of mentality and in the way that his emotions were going into this season. It's great to see him recover as quickly as he did and to push through the rehab side of it to get back to the car. This is his retirement year. He's supposed to enjoy it, and he wants to go out there and do well. And I think Richmond's a perfect track for the body to come back to a race because of the lower demands physically on the body, because there's not a lot of banking here. There's not a lot of G-force. And, you got to get up on the wheel and turn the wheel, but he'll be able to settle in. And he's had good history here at Richmond. He's had multiple wins, and it's just nice to see him jump back in the car so soon, and then to have a solid game plan for Talladega. And then once we get to Kansas and Charlotte, then he's off and running again. And we just want him back in the car to work the bugs out of it, to be as competitive as soon as possible.
Let's go right next door to Sean. Go ahead.
Sean Robertson, CBS 6 here in town. Kurt, we talked so much about the switch from night racing to day racing this year, but you guys raced in the spring last year on a Sunday afternoon. How much of that race and how much of that experience can you guys use this time around to get ready for Sunday's race in the daytime?
We feel real confident on the 41 team with winning the race here during the daytime. All the practices, though, were on normal sequences then, and that was late afternoon, headed into the evening where it's cooler. We've noticed we've run well on some of the warmer days and the hotter tracks and the slicker tracks. Evident last weekend at Bristol, I think that was the warmest Bristol race on record because of the way that it came in April and the way that it was during the daytime. Usually we race there in March during the day and it's a lot cooler out. And then we race there in August. Yeah, it's warm, but then the track temp drops when we race into the evening. So tracks are very different, especially with this downforce and rear end camber package that all the teams are running nowadays. Track temp is very sensitive. So we're hopeful that our daytime setup that we won the race with will be good again here this spring, because we used the same setup in the fall and finished 15th with it.
Go ahead, Chip.
Chip Riera, 8 News here in Richmond. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, Richmond's been doing a lot to try and change the formula here with the Dash for Cash
racing on Saturday and, of course, the day racing. I just wanted to get your thoughts on all the changes they're making to try and get more fans in the seats because, as you mentioned, it's the action track. It's one of the great tracks of the NASCAR circuit.
Well, and Richmond has, the atmosphere here where it's more like a county fair with the setup and the fairgrounds and the way that it feels around the track. There's different sponsor incentives that they're employing, and in the way that you see all of our racing, I still think it's exciting. I still think it's fun to watch, and there's still a lot to gain from it. And that's where we need to stay focused on restarts and who's on what tire strategy and who's out there putting on a good show, and that'll help the fans want to come and see it live in person and feel that energy at the track.
Okay, let's take questions now. John has one right here, and then we'll go to Tom.
Thanks. John Orovitz, ESPN.com. Kurt, it's my understanding that you're not a member of the Drivers' Council. Is that correct?
You're supposed to be voted in on that,
Okay.
right?
I'm just confirming that you're not.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you,
But I would
as
gladly be part of it if the voting all went the way that it could.
Okay.
Sure. It's not like I chose not to be in it. Let's not misconstrue that.
As a non-council member, are you comfortable with the voice the drivers have when it comes to important matters such as safety or marketing?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Tom Jensen. Tom, you got one over here to the far right?
Hi, Kurt. Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Does NASCAR need to go back to requiring 5 tight lug nuts on every wheel on every stop?
I think it's a safety issue that we should look to address before there is a negative outcome with it. To me, it makes sense to have 5 lug nuts. You want 5 of them tight. You go to your Goodyear tire store and get your tires rotated. They put on 3 lug nuts. You're not going to feel so comfortable about that.
Far left, Claire B. Lang.
Larry Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. There's been some conversation that maybe if the owners got together and said tighten them up, it would be one way to do it. Or maybe the teams will decide. When it was initially introduced in early 2015, some of the drivers said they could feel the vibration. So, you would come in and it wouldn't be a problem. But then since then, it's been on the track. Are there other ways to do it other than to have NASCAR, mandate something, which apparently isn't going to be able to happen right now with the officials?
Well, this is such a juicy topic that any word can be placed in the wrong position and it ends up with a negative side effect. I ran the Indy 500 a few years ago, and it was really neat to see them take one lug nut off and then put the same lug nut right back on. And there's a hub that I'm sure we could design in the NASCAR Sprint Cup garage area, even for Xfinity or even for the Truck Series. But I was told that that's not part of the show. The show is to watch those guys, the athletes, jump over the wall, hit their air guns and have them ablazing and hit 5 lug nuts and put 5 back on and just have that energy in the show, part of it. And I agree. It is a unique aspect that our athletes who jump over the wall can perform and the fans can get into it. But when it's starting to cross the threshold of safety on speed versus the ability just to have that wheel hang on and try to get a win, because that's what has happened here, is we're all out there trying to get that one win and try to get locked into the chase. I would say that now most of the Gibbs guys have their win, and they're probably going to go back into a conservative mode for their pit stops to make sure they're getting them all tight. So we shouldn't have qualifying type pit stops to try to win the end of the race.
Reed has one right here in the middle. If we could get Reed the microphone.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. I'm not going to say anything about the no-hitter, but in terms of your practice today, does the threat of rain this afternoon, if at all, alter what you're going to do in practice?
It was great to see the Cubs have a no-hitter last night. Yeah, that was great. And win 16-0.
Nothing.
That just gives us we have got most of it under control this year as a Cub fan. Even that one kid that jumped onto the field. As far as the track, rain, the qualifying and practice, one thing I've noticed this year is a lot of tracks were the first cars on track now. The Sprint Cup Series is out there grooming in the track, getting rid of the loose gravel or the different material that's been drawn up from the air Titan. They're using that air Titan way more now this year to try to blow the track clean to start. But that only creates a greener racetrack that is further from where we're going to end up at the end of happy hour. So the tires, cars, setups are going through much more extremes in the practice sessions now. So it doesn't make sense really to unload in race trim anymore. You want to unload in qualifying trim and go after it because the track is nowhere near rubbered in like it's going to be for the race. So with rain, that only throws more of a wild card into it. Like Texas, we had all that rain overnight. Went into the race on Saturday night, and it took 3 sets of tires. It took till about lap 100 for the track to finally settle and to finally give the car a read on what setups we needed to adjust or what air pressures we needed to look at.
Let's go to Lee. Excuse me.
LeeSpencerMotorsport.com. What kind of things did Tony do behind the scenes to kind of pull everybody together while he was sidelined? I mean, I would hear him on people's radios and things of that nature, but what were the things with his added time that he basically did?
It was neat to have Tony's involvement, Tony Stewart, on the radio at some of the races, as well as right next to the car during happy hour. And he was doing it for 2 reasons. One, as an owner, you could see him putting that owner hat on and how to keep the spirits up on guys that were struggling in practice, or to, as a driver, to learn what was a good trend as far as adjustments to the car and what he needed to think about as a driver when he was going to get back in. And so he's always done a tremendous amount behind the scenes, and it was neat to see him, though, there jumping into the owner's role as well as just what it takes to stay involved as a driver so that the transition to come back isn't going to be as steep for when he gets back in the car. Because it's amazing when you have 5 or 6 races that go by, some of those trends. You look back on what we did at Atlanta, the first mile and a half of the year is not what we're going to be doing at Kansas when we get there in a couple weeks.
Got time maybe for one more question. Anybody for Kurt? Zach, I'm going to finish it up with Zach.
Zach Albert, NASCAR.com. Winning here last spring, it was your first win with Tony Gibson in about your 9th race together, I believe it was. And did you guys just hit it off really well, really quickly? Not just with the on-track thing, but just personally as well.
It was amazing to jump in his car for a few races at the end of 2014. And for himself and all of those crew guys that have been with Gibson for so long, they were excited to see their cars validated on where are we in the ranking, so to speak, on quality of car that we're providing. And I think we hit top 10s right off the bat, just bang, bang, bang. We were sliding around a little bit, but we didn't quite finesse that, maybe hit that exactly right, but we're cranking out top 10s. And so we knew we only had a short way to go to find those rhythms for a win. And it was great to win here at a short track. I think that's where him and I have really had most of our success is at the short tracks. And the personal relationship is somebody that I look up to as a mentor, as a coach. And he gives me the ball, though, when I'm out on the field. When I'm out on the track, he's giving me the ability to make the calls out there. And that's what it takes. It takes that head coach, quarterback, takes that crew chief driver combo to be able to see it all in this day and age and to know what to do on pit stops, 2 tires, 4 tires. The restarts, he leaves those up to me, and yet we go back and watch tape together on what we can do better. And so it's great to have the ability to have an old school guy like him continue to want to learn and to be the best in this garage.
Well, Kurt, thank you for your time, and good luck this weekend to you and your race team here at Richmond.
All right, thank you.